A lot of people have changed their view on weddings. People are doing it themselves. Events are hard. The stress of everything is just so high. If you're not around people that you trust and are actually kind of friends with, it's so frustrating. Like, it's so exhausting. I'm Paola.
Is social media a big part of how you attract clients?
Oh, huge. The most valuable aspects of social media were like the conversations, comments, DM.
You clearly had hit a point of burnout. You were massively exhausted and fell asleep at the wheel and crashed your car.
I rear-ended him so bad. His back window completely shattered in. Oh my gosh. He was like, "Were you on your phone?" And I was like, "No, I just fell asleep." Even my dad, when I called him, he was like, "Don't say that. That's so bad."
People say like postpartum, oh, it's like the 6 weeks and then you're like cleared by your doctor. And I'm like, it's like years actually until you feel normal again.
It was like very difficult for me to get out of bed.
You've said before, like, Sienna saved you.
I just want to be the best version of myself, thinking about how you're going to grow up and you're going to perceive me.
Brittney, welcome to How She Does It. I'm so excited to have you here today. I think that this conversation has been a long time coming, and it's so ironic that now that we're together, just the premise of this podcast is like how she does it, how you are able to manage motherhood, entrepreneurship, all those things. And we've had to push this conversation several times because of things that happen in life with kids and just all of the things. So I'm really excited to finally have you here today and be connecting with such a strong female entrepreneur. So welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be having this conversation right now. We started getting into it and we were like, okay, hold off.
Yeah.
I just need it. I need to connect with someone. Honestly, and I just learned that you were a single mom and my husband's gone right now. And I was like, I don't know how you're doing it. It's amazing. You're very impressive.
Thank you. That's really sweet. I would love to start with that because in previous conversations, like when I've been like doing my deep dive into you, it sounds like you have a really supportive partner. And I want to talk about how he actually supports you so that you're able to accomplish your goals and what that looks like.
Yeah. Do you know what? He is supportive on like a whole other level, not even just like as a great father and partner in our family. He was the first person who really saw me struggling when I started my business. He would have come in a few years after I started, but I started my business 10 years ago. I was serving. I was working at a restaurant at nights, and like literally I would run into the bathroom and be on my phone, like responding to brides and like clients.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was just exhausted. And then I met him and we fell for each other pretty quickly. Like he's from England, so came to Toronto and just stayed. And he just stuck around. Yeah. So he very quickly was like, listen, if we're going to be doing this, like I see how tired you are and I see you're not able to put everything into your business right now. I'll support you however I can. Just like stop serving at night. You're not getting any sleep. It's not good for you. And that's when I was finally able to kind of like jump feet first into my career.
That's amazing. And so let's go back to when you were in school. You went to school for communications, and it's funny because so did I. And I can really relate to when you're just in that space where you're like, I don't know what I want to do, but I feel like, I don't know, communications is good enough.
Yeah.
So talk me through your schooling and how you even ended up in event planning.
So I started in media communications, and I knew I just wanted to do something creative, like whether it was advertising or marketing. I had a knack. I knew I had a knack for event planning, just through my friend circle, through family events. My dad's side is Portuguese, so like weddings were always just a big thing. And I knew I liked it. And I was actually at a university in Niagara. And Niagara College was pretty close by, and I had heard that they had an event management course. Mm-hmm. So I had the option to graduate in 3 years from my communications program and then do a postgraduate at Niagara College,
Oh, wow.
which, yeah, and honestly, it's funny because I found that course way more valuable because of like the hands-on and real-world connections you were getting, like actually
Yeah.
doing things, actually working with people. And maybe I might have been a little bit older and mature and got my partying out during university. I was taking everything way more seriously. But no, it was an awesome program. And after that, like obviously you leave school and nobody wants to hire you because you have no experience to do anything.
Yep.
So yeah, just jumping into an internship where I worked for free and slowly just like learning everything I could. I just took every opportunity to kind of like I said yes to all the things. And sure, at some moments I should have probably said no and not taken on too much. But um I am grateful that I took the opportunity when I was young and had the energy and tried to soak in as much as I could to start my own business.
I love that. And it's so interesting too, because I do find that it is a really fine balance when you're wanting to say yes to all of these opportunities and you learn your point of burnout, I think, through taking on too much sometimes, which is an unfortunate way to have to learn those lessons. But I think that
Yeah.
that's really real in order to just be able to understand, okay, what is my capacity? What does that look like? And have to like develop those work boundaries for yourself, especially when you're creative and you're driven and you want to accomplish all of those things. So how were you able to figure out that balance for yourself in saying yes and what to say no to?
You know what's crazy, Amber? I think it's an addiction. Like it's one of
Yeah.
those things where I think I'm like relapsing sometimes. Like I accidentally say yes to way more things and
Yeah.
then I feel it again and I'll be like, I did it again. I should have said no to that. I should have like probably right now, maybe I had both kids going into daycare. So I just had my son, he's 10 months, and a spot opened and they're both full time. So I was like, I'm free. I can do so
Work.
many things with my time now. And maybe like in the first month, I should not have signed up for as many things as I did because I'm getting to the point right now where I'm like, okay, this is like unmanageable.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny we started with schooling because I'm actually taking PR courses, like continuing education right now.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
a
to get
lot
my
with.
communications degree, certificate. But like the world's changed since, like, if you think when you went to school for communications too, like we didn't have social media like we do now. We didn't have like influencers, and like advertising is through people basically running
Yeah.
their own advertising now. And like I don't have the time to teach myself or to like
Mhm.
dive in myself. So I'm like, okay, let's just take some courses and have somebody teach me about corporate communications and like where we are in the world of PR. And it helps in the event management world too, because we do a lot of like PR events, product launches, brand activations. So it's nice to be able to speak the language and like
Yeah.
understand what they need. But yeah, taking courses right now is
Taking
hard.
courses with a 3.5-year-old, a 10-month-old, and a business. I'm like, so how are you finding the time and when do you even fit that in?
Do you know what? It's funny because my husband and I got to a point where like we had just accomplished, you know, that like newborn phase where you're like, this is sleep torture. And we are
Yeah.
constantly just like taking our frustration out on each other. And
Mhm.
all of our apologies would be like, I'm just tired. I'm
Yeah.
just tired. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just tired. And we finally just got over that because like our kids started sleeping and like everybody's having a good night's rest. And we're like, okay, now let's focus on us. And there was a few times where maybe just through work, like I had gone out with the girls to a venue event or something, a PR event. And then my husband, Mark, he would like go out to the movies and we'd be like, it feels good. Like we need to start making it mandatory that we like take these nights and do something for ourselves. And he was like, okay, I'll have Thursdays. And like, he'll even just go to the movies by himself. Like, he's just like, I just need to be out and
Yeah. I so
functioning
feel
as
it.
an adult.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, okay, I'll take Tuesdays. And then I saw the course and I was like, okay, I guess my Tuesday night is school. Awesome. But it's nice because It's run by a very like young, energetic teacher, and it feels like I'm having a conversation a lot of the time, even though it's virtual and I'm doing it from home. But it's nice because Mark just like takes over dinner and bedtime duties while I like jump into the course. So it does feel like a little bit of a break and I'm doing something for myself. But I think that's why I feel like I can manage it right now because we decided to take a night and I'm kind of making it seem like it's for me. Like it's my night to do something. Except I do
Okay.
have homework. So the homework is
Oh
really
my
throwing me.
gosh.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. You basically substituted it for your like adult alone girl time or whatever, because I always
Yeah.
wonder like how to balance everything. And I think that personally, my social life is something that, especially those first 2 years with my daughter, especially because I'm a single parent, that just went out the window. Like I had to
Yeah.
apologize to friends a lot because I was like, I had so much postpartum anxiety,
Yeah.
postpartum depression. I like didn't want to like leave the house because the sleep routines and the naps and this and that. Then when you transition to going back to work, that's a whole other load that you're taking on. And I was working in corporate when I first went back to
Yeah.
work and then transition to entrepreneurship. So it's just been a long journey of all of these transitions over the last couple of years. And I think sometimes with social media nowadays, we look on the outside and we just see the grid posts and the videos and all that kind of stuff. And it looks really nice and pretty. But I really think that deep down, everyone does choose an area in which they have to sacrifice if they want to accomplish their goals. And a lot of times with women, especially, I think it's our friendships or our personal time that has to go in order to like reach these bigger goals.
It is. And it's like it's one of those things where you said I'd have to sacrifice because of like sleep schedules and stuff. It's crazy now because like I find myself being like, what's more worth it, going
Yeah.
out or like having everybody have a really good night's sleep? And it sounds so lame, but then you're like, the next day I just feel so much better. Like I just feel energetic and like I can do my hair and put regular clothes on and not feel like a bum and like feel
Mhm.
proud of myself and feel motivated to do things. And so it's almost like I'm trying my best not to think about what I'm losing in terms of like relationships and things like that. I'm trying to think of what I'm gaining by having a better day, by having a more motivated day, by being able to like work towards my goals a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, feeling refreshed, feeling like I'm on top of things. Because I feel like if I'm always like, oh, I missed out on this, oh, I missed out on this, I never get to do anything. It's just such a sad existence.
It's it's so true. Switching your mindset around it, I think actually is so important. And that's one of the reasons I stopped drinking over a year ago.
Yeah,
Um,
us too. My husband
oh,
and I, we
really?
like barely, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference because I'm like, I think that when you go through having a newborn and you lose sleep,
Hmm.
anything that contributes to a bad quality of sleep, lack of sleep, you're like, it's gotta go. I don't have
Yeah.
the space for it.
Yeah. And even like so we did basically, my husband and I did a huge, crazy detox where like we learned our sensitivities, we fixed things like leaky gut. Like it was,
Oh.
we just like deep dove into like changing our lifestyle. We like lost all this weight. We were feeling so healthy. We were so energetic. Our sleep was great. And booze we cut out. So then when I slowly like started to have drinks again, every single time after I'd be like, this isn't worth it. This
Yeah.
is this is not the life.
Yeah.
This my husband's like a year straight until Christmas. He's like, yeah, I'll have some wine on Christmas. But like recently I had wine with a friend and I was like, oh, just like even the heart palpitations at night and like the
Yeah.
anxiety and you're like, this just ain't it.
It's so true. And I think that there's so much power in like taking an extended period off because then you actually realize how much it's contributing. Because if you're just having like a casual drink here or there, you don't actually realize, oh, it's from the wine that I was doing that. Oh, it's from you.
Yeah.
It's so you can actually correlate things to really understand how it's impacting your quality of life. And I'm like, I can't afford to not be able to wake up in the morning and feel good when I'm the
Yeah.
only one that's there for my kid, or I have to work, I have this, I have a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just like, it's not worth it. Like, I'll have a mocktail.
And you're the only one. Like
Yeah.
that's blowing my mind. I like my husband and I, we're like tag teaming obviously, and we're feeling that way. We're like, oh my gosh, if we have to get up and somebody gets up at like 6:30 or whatever it is, the fact that like sometimes I can roll over and be like, okay, you go do this one. Like you can't even do that.
No.
Oh my gosh. It's
Yeah.
just nonstop.
There's little room for error, I find in my life, which makes me a control freak. There's things where I'm just like, I think that I now substitute in different ways where I'm like, okay, I'll just get really focused. And so I'm like, I'm really into my morning routine and just, well, actually, all of my routines, calendar blocking, just making sure I'm super efficient in that way.
Yeah.
So, in your life, because you have, like, tell me about your business structure and what that looks like and how you're able to manage and fit in all the things with your kids.
Yeah, it's funny because I guess Mark and I have had these discussions where I'll kind of step back and he'll ask me the events world. Like, do you think that's something that you'll always be able to do with kids or always be able? Because I have late nights. We
Mhm.
like tear down sometimes at 1 a.m. I
Oh,
don't
wow.
get back some nights at like, I don't know, until 4, 5 a.m. if it's like a huge tear down. Because we do anything from event planning, day of coordination, but then we also do like the physical decor and we do the florals, we do the installations. So it's very hands-on on some projects. And like it's physical on our bodies. Like it's hard
Mhm.
on our bodies. And it's funny, we were talking briefly before about just like being healthy and changing our lifestyles. Like if I don't work out, I am so sore on those days that like
Oh, true.
they really push me. The job is really hard. Um, and everything, it's just not worth it to not have my workout routine
Mhm.
consistently because then I suffer later. So it's it's one of those things now where it's funny after COVID, a lot of people have changed their view on weddings, on spending money on like wedding decor, florals. A lot of people don't have the luxury to pay for a wedding planner anymore.
Mhm.
Maybe day of coordination, but a lot of people are doing it themselves. And we're doing a lot more corporate right now. So hence also the corporate courses, the corporate PR courses.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot more corporate, which ended up working out nicely because they're usually during the week. So if we're doing like pop-ups
Oh.
and things, yeah. So my days have kind of nicely filled out during the 9 to 5 when kids are at daycare. And the girls on my team that don't have families are readily available to kind of jump in for a teardown or something afterwards if it's in the evening. But my husband's also super ready to jump in whenever like he has to take over dinner or bedtime. But it's funny how that adaptation kind of worked in my favor a little bit. But I also have a team of just really smart, beautiful women who are ambitious and they want to take on those clients. So I've gotten a lot better at realizing that like they want those clients too. I don't have to say yes to all of them. I don't have to take all of them.
Mhm.
Sometimes creatively I want to. I'll be jealous if somebody has like a really good project and I'm like, oh, I kind of wanted to do that one.
Mhm.
But I'm getting better at just being like, yeah, take it. And I'll come support. I'll come take like footage for marketing. Um, and figuring out where I can step back a little bit because it's like we said, like if I work myself too much, I can't bounce back like I used to. And it's just too hard.
That's honestly really true. So how did you go from like being an intern and working and just trying to soak up basically like industry knowledge to going out on your own and then scaling to a team? What did that like process look like?
Um, when I was interning, so I worked for an event planner. My boss, she's in LA now and she's doing like really, really cool stuff. And so we were always doing like high-end luxury weddings, high-end like corporate, very detailed, like huge scale things.
Mhm.
And we had a small team because we needed the support. And when I left and I kind of felt confident enough that I had soaked in enough to at least start out on my own, as the opportunities kind of kept coming up and I wanted to say yes to them, I quickly realized that I needed the team like she had.
Mhm.
So and it was tough to the team I worked with. at my internship, it we saw a few people come and go because events are hard. Like people very quickly realize it's not what they want to do. And you need to get along with those people so well because the stress of everything is just so high that if you're not around people that you trust and are actually kind of friends with, it's so frustrating. Like it's so exhausting. Oh, so like as soon as I found my girls, which were through internships as well, I very quickly, I offered an internship through a college program like the one I took. And it was all individuals and students that needed to get hours for their course.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, so they all came in and I was like, yeah, like we're doing all these events. You just have to like come support, come learn how to create flowers, shadow me as much as possible. And they were just so quick. It was 3 of them. So I had one, she's 6 years now, and the other 2 are on 5 years.
Wow.
And so they came pretty close in proximity. Just in the 2 years, I found all of them and I could not let them go. Like we just are so good at bouncing off each other and supporting each other. And you know those teammates where you don't really actually have to finish sentences, like they just kind of know what you're saying. And it just makes everything so much easier.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's literally amazing. And I was looking on your Instagram and I saw like the profiles of you guys do like these cute little videos where it's like introing basically like the team. And so with your business right now and gaining clients, is social media a big part of how you attract clients, or what does that structure look like?
Yeah, it's big. Social media, like it's funny how the world of advertising has changed so much. We used to pay so much money to advertise in magazines. And I'm like, when's the last time you've actually physically picked up a magazine? Like, I think I have 2 that I picked up maybe a few months ago just because I was in like a bookstore and I saw them. And I was like, yeah, sure, maybe. But I haven't looked through them. And you don't actually read like who's advertising in there, what companies or what. But we used to spend so much on advertising in magazines. And I think very quickly I realized that the most valuable aspects of social media were like the conversations. So like comments by people who were loving things and then would DM and like ask how much things were or if they could do something similar for their event. And slowly I felt like I was having more conversations with people through social media. And it's nice too because the team I have right now, we've been together so long that like we almost openly joke about each other through social media. Like, and it's funny because it's almost like everybody's a little bit in on the joke.
Yeah.
When they make comments and stuff, it's like they know Miley's like goofy personality. They know like stuff that Jack does. They know stuff that Jenna does. And we're always kind of teasing each other. So it's nice because we've opened everybody up to not only just the work we do, but almost like our team dynamic. And it helps us get really cool couples. Like a lot of people are always like, oh, you must have so many bridezillas. I'm like, no, everybody we work with is so chill, so sarcastic. And I don't know if that's because we put our personality out there.
Yeah.
That we attracted those people.
I 100% think so. And I love that you've touched a little bit in your like previous stuff that I've listened to about you, about being your authentic self and not like falling into this trap of thinking about building this brand that you think you should have and just being true to yourself. And you talk about like swearing and like how that did land you a client because they're like, thank you for just like being real. Like we're going to go with you. And I think that there's like this element of realness that people are really craving. And so when they're trying to find someone that they connect with, I think that actually gives you an edge over your competition because they're like, okay, she's real, you know?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And I really think that in like building a brand that's going to last and have, I wonder if they talk about this in your PR course. And I dropped out of school. So like I actually didn't go through my full communications thing. But when like you're in your PR stuff, it's like thinking about building a brand that's bulletproof and actually showing up as your authentic self and being like unapologetic in that way. Like, I'm here, I'm going to make mistakes sometimes, but
Yeah.
then we're going to learn from it and move forward. That's actually how you build something that's going to last the test of time, because anything else is just fake and fragile.
Yep. Totally. And then the minute you mess up, you can't just say, I'm so embarrassed. That was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because people don't know you that way. You've messed up. You're
Yeah.
done.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how before you, I think, was your car accident before you had kids?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was.
So you clearly had hit a point of burnout and you were massively exhausted and fell asleep at the wheel and crashed your car.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take me back to that point in your life and walk me through what happened.
Do you know what? It's funny too, because when I think back specifically to the car accident, I had a whole car filled with like glass vases, like decor, just top to the brim, like to the roof of the car of decor, passenger seat, everything was full. And we were heading to, my parents have this beautiful backyard and we were going to shoot just some table settings and setups in the garden. But it was so unnecessary when I look back to it, like going back to saying no to some things and like not having to do everything. I look back to it, back to that moment, and I'm like, I don't even remember why we were doing that photo shoot. It was probably just to get more content, but it was just another thing that I had added on to all the things. And I just remember being so exhausted, like packing that car and driving, and the car in front of me, he just very quickly stopped to allow someone to do a left-hand turn. And he was just him being kind, like out of nowhere. He was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna let this person in. And he kind of like stopped, but I was dozing at that point. And I had been, do you know what? It's crazy that it didn't happen before, because like I do remember being exhausted on the highway, exhausted everywhere, and it's just because he did stop. And I rear-ended him so bad. His back window completely shattered in.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I fully remember him coming to my window and he was like, were you on your phone? And I was like, no, I just fell asleep. And even my dad, when I called him, he was like, don't say that. Don't say you fell asleep. That's so bad. And I was like, but I was being honest. I just like, I don't know. It was traumatic. And he like, it was just a disaster. And I cried for the rest of the day. And
Oh, I bet.
my whole team was just like, listen, like if you need us, like just take a minute, take a break. Like you've got all this support, you've got people who want to help you. And even my parents, because they were close by, they were just like, Britt, like you need to relax a little bit. And I do remember after that accident being really low, like just sad. It wasn't like a quick moment where I was like, oh, I've got support. I need to start saying no to things. And like, now I feel so much better. I've hit my rock bottom. Like, it was a few weeks, I would even say months after that, where it was like very difficult for me to get out of bed and like take on meetings and answer emails and go to work and be normal. And I had to work through that like pretty heavily.
And did you go to therapy because of it? Or
I
did you
went
go
to therapy later.
Oh,
I think I worked through that one on my own, but didn't work through it properly. Like I was still like, okay, I do need to step back. I do need to like control things a little. I need to focus on my health. I need to get my sleep. But it wasn't until I would say postpartum that really like it could have also been, now that I think about it, the feeling of feeling depressed again.
yeah.
Because it's a scary feeling, like, and you know exactly how it feels. You're like, it's dark and it's hopeless, and I'm not really sure what's happening. I don't want to go through it myself, so I started therapy after I had my daughter.
Oh, okay. And you've said before, like, Sienna saved you. And I think
Yep.
that there are, like, motherhood is so complex. And I think especially with your first baby, it rocks your world in terms of like you shed this person who you once were and you're becoming this new version where you're trying to like break this mold of who you are, but then also who you are as a mom.
Mhm.
And so how did she save you and what did that look like?
I don't know if like you connect to this also, but do you ever have those moments where, and it sounds so cheesy because like I'm just gonna go into it, but you know when
Mhm.
you're like laying with them and they're falling asleep and you're just looking at them and they do something cute, like sometimes
Yeah.
she'll turn over and she'll be like, "Mom, I love you," and just give me
Mhm.
like a cute little kiss or something. And it's those moments where I'm sitting by myself and I'm just like, I want you to think I'm awesome forever. Like I
Mhm.
just want to be the best version of myself, thinking about how you're going to grow up and you're going to perceive me. And it's such like a reflective moment that it's so strong. Like
Yep.
the minute I come out from her bedroom, sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to do this right now. Or I'm going to like take a little break or I'm going to take a bath. Or like, I really feel like it's such a reflective moment where and they happen a little bit all the time. Like I find myself kind of sitting there and like maybe she repeats me or maybe she talks about going to the studio and you're like, "Oh, like you see me, you see what I'm doing and you're starting to like soak it up now and I just want to be the best." And I don't want her to ever, I know she's going to obviously grow up and make her own mistakes and do all the things because our parents probably thought the same thing about us
You
one
know,
day. But like I just want to be a good role model for her.
I really,
It's
really, I
powerful.
relate to that. It's so true. And I think that especially there's something about having a daughter because you're like, I don't want to. I especially think about this because I'm a single mom. And a lot of the time I get the question, I don't know how you're doing that. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. Like all those things. And I don't want her to think I'm Superwoman. I don't
Mhm.
want her to think that. I want to really like break those boundaries and be like, Lemmy has support. Like I have my mom who's a huge support to me. I outsource a lot. Like I don't want her to think that you're supposed to do it all by yourself. You're
Yeah.
supposed to build a really strong village and that's how you do it. And that's how you make your dreams come true. And there's just something about looking at them when they're so tiny and now like they're in this space where they're so inquisitive and they're like copying the things that you're doing that it's such a mirror that you're like, oh wait, is this the behavior that I want her to have? So
Yeah.
if not, I need to fix that within myself first. And I think that in motherhood, I have a really big approach on it's like this might sound weird. It's less about parenting and
Yeah.
more about changing myself to be
Yes.
the best version of myself so
Yeah.
that it leads her in the right way. I'm like, I read the parenting books, I do all the things, I try to be the best mom for her, but I'm like, if you could only do one thing, work on yourself first, and then that will trickle into who they actually grow up to be.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's almost like the hack of
Yep.
parenting because it's not like we're barely doing anything. We're just trying to be better ourselves and
Mhm.
then they just do it. Like
Mhm.
my husband and I, we cook so much. We live a fairly healthy lifestyle. Like
Mhm.
Sienna sees me, like I've got my little gym set up and she sees me working out and she's like, I'm gonna exercise. Like
I love
it's
that.
you don't even have to tell them to do stuff. They're just doing what you're doing. And if you're doing it well, like you're setting them up for success.
It's so true. And it's funny because earlier I started my laundry machine and I use like the Tide powder
Yeah.
and spilt it all over the floor. And like a past version of myself would have sworn, would have literally
Yeah.
got so frustrated. And
Yeah.
I stopped. I took a big deep breath and I was like, this isn't that big of a deal. Like, and so
Totally.
the way that I speak to myself is going to teach her how to speak to herself. And the
Yeah.
only reason that I have stopped my overreactions is
Yep.
because when she was doing something little and she would spill a juice box and I was freaking out, I'm like,
Yep.
dude, she's 2 and it's a juice box. Like, it's
Yeah.
not that serious.
Yeah.
But you
You
have
know
to
what
like,
is it's so crazy. Like you just reminded me of there was a couple weeks ago and I forget it was a ton of stuff and I cried And I tried really hard not to cry in front of her.
Mhm.
But like also we're humans, like
Yeah.
we cry sometimes. And so I started crying and she grabs my hand and she's like, Mom, it's okay. It's okay. Take a deep breath. It's gonna be okay. Take a deep breath. Here, come over here. Come over. Let's go for a walk. Let's walk it off. And she like, put your head on my lap. It's fine. You're gonna be
Stop.
fine. And I was like, she is saying all the things. Like all the things I've ever said, all the
It's
deep breaths, all the like, calm down, let's take a walk, let's like cool down, come to the bedroom, let's cool down. And I was like, as if they're such sponges. And I like for the good and bad stuff, which is
honestly, I know. I'm like, I watch my potty mouth in front of my kid because I'm like, ugh, I don't want you dropping the F bomb at daycare. But
Oh,
um,
speaking of daycare, this morning I drop her off, and thank God the director there, she's so cool. And she's like, oh, my kids are probably going to be saying the F bomb like every 2 words. But she was like, right, standing right beside me. And Sienna goes to her cubby and goes, this is my damn cubby. And I was like, excuse
that's hilarious.
what? And the fact that she heard it and she like just burst out laughing and she's like, someone's listening to mommy a little too closely. And I was like, I don't even think I say damn that much. I
That
don't know.
is so funny. But
Yeah,
it's true.
today.
Like they soak up every single thing. And so it's like it really is. And I kind of like I do eventually want more kids, but I feel there's like this thing with your first where you're like, honestly, we're winging it. Like
Yeah,
I'm not, you know what I mean? It's just like you're
yeah,
just like, unfortunately you are the test dummy a little bit.
yeah. I know. I know. And like my husband and I had kind of the same. It sounds really sad. Like one day Leo might listen to this and be like, "What?" But when we found out we were pregnant again, I was like, I had a moment where I was like, "Oh, it was the three of us. We are just getting the hang of things, and like we were such a little crew." And then I talked to Mark about it. He's like, "No, I felt the same way. I totally was like, oh no, it's not just the three of us anymore." And then he came and same thing. Like it's just totally different scenario because we thought we were just getting good at it with her.
Yeah.
And he came around and we were like, oh, here we go again. Like, we don't know.
It's
We're
so
not
true. And
sure.
I think that especially for women, like what your body goes through. Like I say, I made a joke. I had a video online where I made a joke about how it's like actually people say like postpartum, oh, it's like the 6 weeks and then you're like cleared by your doctor. And I'm like, it's like years actually
Yeah.
until you feel normal again. And I'm like, Ivy is 3.5, and I just now feel like, okay, my weight has stopped fluctuating and I
Yeah.
feel normal in my hormones and all that kind of stuff. And I did breastfeed for a long time.
Yeah.
So that prolongs it too. But
How long
talk to
did
me
you breastfeed for?
18 months.
Whoa. Good
Yeah,
for you. I
thank you.
gave up
But
so quickly.
I would not do it that long again.
Wow.
Like I
It's so
wouldn't.
impressive.
But I did. So you dealt with something specific with breastfeeding, right? What was
Yeah.
that called?
DEMER, dysphoric milk ejection reflex. So originally we thought it was postpartum depression. And then uh, the hospital actually sent me or connected me to a psychiatrist, and she is like a postpartum psychiatrist. And after many conversations and her like sending me anti-anxiety medication, like she was like, oh, you're depressed, you're depressed, you're depressed. And then finally she was like, well, when does it usually happen? And I was like, 100% of the time when I'm breastfeeding. And she's like, oh, you've got DEMER. So, and it's not very well known. Like I've had friends that I've told, or have listened to a past podcast where I've mentioned it, and they'll message me and be like, "Oh my God, I had it. Like I for sure had that." And I'm like, nobody knows about it. It's so weird.
No, it's so crazy. And so I think that like when you finally realized that, what was the course of action? Did you stop breastfeeding?
Oh, immediately.
Oh,
Immediately. I was like, it's not worth it. Like I
yeah.
feel so, and it was funny too because like the description of um postpartum depression, I couldn't quite connect with because I was like, I don't feel all doom and gloom all the time. Like, I don't, it just comes and goes. And I just feel really like disgusting. Like,
Okay.
when you like read a really gross, like news story
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel really sick. Like that's
Yeah.
what it would make me feel like. I feel sick.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and it was just so specific. And I told my husband, who was like, we were kind of both on the same page because I was like, breastfeeding is so inexpensive. Like the minute I stop, we're gonna have to start paying for formula. Formula is
Yeah.
crazy expensive. And he was like, just tough it out, like tough it out. And then the minute she was like, I think you're feeling sad because you're breastfeeding. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm done. I don't
How
want to
old
do
was
that
your
anymore.
daughter at that point?
She would have been, I think, 4 months.
Okay. At
Yeah, four
least you
months.
didn't have to, like, 4 months is a long time to suffer and deal with that. But
Yeah.
relatively, at least you figured it out within those first couple months because
But how do you even figure it out? Like, there's so much happening to our bodies
I
that,
know.
like, you just do not feel like you. You are not getting more than, like, sometimes 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of sleep. Like, how is it possible for anybody to get down to the bottom of any way they're feeling while you're going through that?
Support. Like, I feel like if you didn't have that specialist that you were working with,
Yeah,
you would have probably continued to breastfeed and just been depressed
totally.
for the duration.
And the mom guilt, because I kept just like mom guilting myself, being like, I have to do this. Everybody does this. Like, the goal
One
is whatever the goal is.
That's so interesting too, because like as you say that, I think to myself, like I deal with mom guilt too. And I think it's like when, especially thinking about like breastfeeding and the mom guilt when they're really young, I'm like, if you're going to stop doing something that's going to make you a better version of yourself, like think about the stories that you'll tell your kid in
Yeah.
20 years where you're like, I toughed it out. I toughed it out and I did it. And it was so hard versus, oh no, I just stopped doing that and we just like had a better time.
Yeah.
The whole narrative
I
around
wish.
that time changes.
Because my mom didn't say anything like that to me. My grandma didn't say anything like that to me. Like they were very much, oh, breastfeed, breastfeed. Like it's great that you're able to breastfeed. And I was like, oh, good, this is the thing. But like
Remember,
for sure, when Sienna's postpartum, and I'm like, dude, I I had a rough time. Like anything you need to do to not like cry all the time
it's
or
it's so
argue with
true.
your significant other, like do it.
And that's like it's such a sensitive time because it's like sleep deprived you is not you. And so
No.
both you and your partner like going at it. I remember like going downstairs one morning to like pump at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
and like him just getting so upset with me. And I'm like, why are you getting upset with me? I'm pumping, like my boobs are about to explode. He's
Yeah.
like, you don't need to do it now. Like, go sleep. And I was just like, what? And it's like you just
It
argue
explodes.
over nothing.
Everything explodes. It is
It's
just bad. It's just always bad.
it's so bad. It's so awful. And I think that it's just important to, like you said, in those moments, like choose what's best and healthiest for you. And if you can breastfeed and it's not making you depressed and you like it, go for it. Like knock your
Oh,
boots
yeah.
off. But
I
if
know
you don't
people.
want to, like, who
Yeah.
cares? Pay for the formula and it's like
Yeah.
paying for your peace.
Yeah, totally. Did you like breastfeeding? Because you did it for a while.
Yeah, I did. And honestly, it felt very convenient. Like, this is gonna sound so funny, but when you leave the house, like you don't have to pack bottles, you don't have to
Totally.
do any of
Totally. You're like,
so
I
it's
got
like,
food.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
like really convenient in that way. And my daughter, I had so many issues with her sleeping and all of that it's like the breastfeeding felt like the easiest thing. I wasn't going to take away the easiest thing, and she would never take a bottle.
Yeah.
So I was just like, let me just continue. If this is easy, let me just give myself the break. And I had postpartum depression, but it didn't feel connected to breastfeeding specifically, or I would
Yeah.
have stopped.
Yeah. How long
So
did your depression last?
Um, honestly, it was a long time. And I
Yeah.
think that some was circumstantial because my relationship was also like falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, I would say probably like the first 5 months were really, really bad.
Hmm.
And then it feel like a fog like lifted. But then once I stopped breastfeeding, my hormones went crazy again. So around 18 months, I fell back into that and
Oh,
then pulled myself out again. So it was like,
so
it was a
tough.
really big roller coaster. And I think that it definitely impacted like all of my relationships. I was not normal with anyone. But now I think like people knowing my character and all that kind of stuff, it like helped to, I don't know. I was in therapy. I did a lot of things. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that I really talk about too. I'm like, get support, like talk to a therapist, make sure that you're like pouring into yourself. And so I really protect my time now. And I'll like
Yeah.
say no to the social things and all that kind of stuff to preserve myself,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's funny you say like your relationships too. I I had a friend before I went to therapy and we kind of almost went through it together. And same thing, like we just like didn't see eye to eye for some reason. And we had always been just so close, such close friends. Um, and then all of a sudden we were just like arguing all the time and we were taking things out and she was going through her own stuff. And I was like, how do you explain that this isn't
Yeah.
me? Like you don't even know at the time that it's
Yeah.
not you. You're like, this is all real. I'm feeling
Mhm.
all these feelings because all of this is real.
Mhm.
And you're just being like, not an awful person. You're just not being yourself.
Yeah.
And she ended up seeing a therapist. I saw a therapist, and that like now we talk about it, being like, remember when we were both crazy?
No.
Like that
It's
was
so
nuts.
true. It's so true. And honestly, not even having that, I didn't even have the capacity to like text people back. That sounds
Yeah.
insane, but like I didn't have the capacity. And especially like I think about that transition period and going back to work, having my daughter, she still wasn't sleeping through the night. I finally sleep trained her at 15 months.
Oh,
Um,
tough.
yeah, so it was like there was just so many transitions going on that it was just basically like it felt impossible to get back to myself,
Yeah.
let alone like text you back and say I can't hang. I was like, if any energy that I have is going towards sustaining and
Yeah.
making sure this little girl is okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that when I come out of my fog, then off with you anyway. But
Yeah.
everybody
Totally.
did. Everybody like was like, we could tell
Yeah.
that you
Oh,
were in.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like I can tell even some friends when they're like that they're in the thick of it. And if I don't
Mhm.
get a response back, I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I like I almost don't even take offense to
Yeah.
people not responding back anymore because the world is just like madness. Whether it's like
100.
having little kids or a business or just work or financial issues, like it's just exhausting to always be on for people and like having to respond in a timely manner. Sometimes
Mhm.
you're just like, I need a minute.
Yeah, it's so true. And I live so much of my life like out loud online on social media that I think I'm like, please, I'm posting because I have to. Like, don't
Yeah.
think that I'm like ignoring you or
I
anything.
know.
So it's
Yes,
so,
I
so
technically
much.
have my phone
Yeah.
and I do see your message. I
Yeah.
do, but I'm doing something else. I
Honestly,
know. I
it's can
know.
just be so overwhelming. And so to like you've talked a lot about your health and how important this is, and I want you to just like go into a little bit of depth on like what does your workout routine look like and how has that impacted you being able to show up as like the best version of yourself?
It is crazy because all I do, so do you have an Apple Watch?
Yeah,
Like,
and I have an Aura
okay.
Ring.
Okay. Oh, you do? Do you love
Yeah.
it?
Oh,
For your
I'm
sleep? Like
yeah.
it tracks oh, see, that's what I think. Because I charge my watch at night. So
Yeah.
like I'm not tracking my sleep, but I'm so curious. I want to
Me.
get, yeah, it's good.
Oh, I literally cannot live without it. Like I'm
Okay,
so
okay.
obsessed with it.
You convinced. I'm convinced. Because that's like the next step I think in my like little health journey. I'm really trying to fix my sleep.
Mhm.
Because I used to be such a night owl and I used to get work done till like 3 a.m. or like
Oh
just
my
push through
gosh.
stuff. Yeah, and it would be silly. Well, also I think sometimes because my teardown schedules were going so late at night, so I'd be like, "Oh, it's just me. I'm just up at night."
Yeah.
But that one, like I'm getting better at it. But my workouts, so I just set my Apple Watch to 35 minutes a day. And it's like a non-negotiable. Like I have to do some sort of movement 35 minutes a day. And I even find because after when I was prescribed the anti-anxiety medication, I would feel better, but there were also side effects from the medications. Like I was a little groggy sometimes. I just didn't feel quite like myself all the time, but also because my health wasn't in check.
Right.
So it's funny once you you assess your diet, you assess the way you're eating. And when you change that, you're like, oh, this is medication. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And then my workouts every day, like non-negotiable 35 minutes, I feel better after it. Like I've
Yeah.
taken something and like just weight training usually. And like one day I'll go in and I'll do arms and back. Next day I'll go in and I'll do like core and lower back. Next day I'll go in and I'll do lower body. Some days I'll just do 35 minutes on a treadmill, like walking, maybe doing social media at the same time. Like I don't put too much
Cool.
pressure on myself to try to get the like sweatiest workout in. Because
Mm-hmm.
some people, like some of my friends will be like, you just go back to work? Like you don't shower or anything? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just like moving my body enough that I feel good.
Yeah.
And it's wild. Like I used to have so many coffees every day. And now I can take a gym break and just go lift some weights. And I've got this like jolt of energy. I can like take on the rest of my day. Usually I just put it during my lunch break. Like I have a 35-minute break. There's a gym at my studio that I can
Oh,
use. Yeah. And even like I've got a home, like just some weights that I can pick up and do something. But it's crazy because like I have a lot of moms that are having a tougher time getting back in shape. And they're finding it really difficult to make time to work out.
mm-hmm.
And I started doing this, and like after Leo, I was in about like a size 8 pants. I'm maybe in size like a 4 now. My weight's
Wow.
the same. Like my weight is I don't weigh myself anymore because I'm like that messes with you so much.
I know I
I'm
don't do that either. When I'm
right?
like, yeah, it's
I'm
like you
building
really
muscle.
gauge. Yeah, that's really great. Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I just feel good. Like
Yeah.
you just feel almost to touch back on how we were talking about we don't really drink anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I started noticing that a lot of my like work anxiety or just life anxieties came from like a substance
Mm.
or lack of sleep. So like if I'm on point with the way I'm eating and like my workouts every day and I get a good night's sleep, my problems don't feel bad. Like they
Yeah.
feel very achievable. Like I can find a solution.
I really love that. And it's honestly so true. And I think that it's one of those things where sometimes, because I think that there's also this culture, especially with moms and online, it's like having the glass of wine to like
Yeah.
unwind. And like it's actually doing more harm than it is good.
Yeah.
But it takes a second to be able to like break that habit and then feel better from it. And I think that understanding it's a detox, and detoxing isn't this fun sexy thing where like immediately your skin is clearer and you feel better and just like what it's like, no, your body goes through stuff where you're like,
Oh yeah.
wait, I have headaches now and my skin is purging and all this, like you go through a phase. But if you can get over that hump,
Yeah.
the other side, you feel clearer, you have more energy, like that afternoon fog. I don't have the afternoon fog anymore.
It's
It's
magical.
amazing.
It's a beautiful space to be in. Like even, when you wake up, like you just wake up and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this is the time I wake up. And
Yep.
I don't feel like I'm like dragging myself out of bed. This is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you
It's
try to
so,
explain that to some people because you're like, just try, like just
I
get
know.
there. Like
I know.
it's
Sometimes
you
I feel like I lean too crunchy and people are
I,
like, okay.
I
And I'm like,
know.
no, I swear the supplements, like I went on
I know.
took out all of like, so I took all processed foods out of my diet. I was working with a
Yeah.
naturopath recently.
Yeah.
Um, and she changed my life. Like, I'm like, I will sing her praises for the rest of my life because I used to work out really hard and I was gaining weight. And I was like, what is happening? And not just gaining weight on the scale. My clothes were not fitting. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm running 15 kilometers. What is happening right
You're
now?
doing
So
all
I
the
was
right
like,
things. Yeah.
exactly. But it's like, no, Amber, you had to I had to like cut the shit with myself
Yeah.
and really realize like, you have to give up sugar. Your body is not processing it properly. You have to give up all of the processed foods. Like our bodies aren't meant to take all of that stuff in all of the time. Give it a break and then watch
Yeah.
what happens. I stopped working out other than walks and lost 15 pounds. It's
I
like
know.
insane.
Isn't it wild? And do you know what is crazy that you say that? Us cutting out sugar somehow seems to be this like difficult process. But then when we feed our kids sugar, you can see it happening. Like
Yeah.
the minute they have sugar, they have meltdowns. They're not
It's
sleeping
so,
well. Like, why why don't we take that knowledge and we're like, oh, it must be doing something to us too.
mm-hmm.
But we don't. It's
I
crazy.
know. I know. And it's so funny when you actually just get down to like the basics of things, understanding the things that are good for them are good for us. When we're like, oh, you need to get outside. We need to get outside.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
fresh air. We need to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Like all
Wild.
of yeah. And it's just like, it's so painfully simple. But
Mm-hmm.
we as humans and adults just like to overcomplicate this stuff and
Yeah.
make it seem more complex than it is.
Oh, yeah. It's like the amount of times people are like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to go to the gym. I'm like, it's the whole like 35-minute thing I have. I'm just like, I have 35 minutes. Like
Yeah.
I could be cutting out something in my day, or like instead of going to go to the gym, put an Audible book on, listen to a book. So I'm like learning something new or listening to a story, go outside for a walk on a nice day, go and see other businesses and get inspired, and then go take my 35-minute walk in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I've done so many other things in 35 minutes and also moved my body. Like, we do have time. We're just not
Yeah.
prioritizing it.
It's really true. And I'm like, just check your screen time. You have time.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Because I have to tell myself that. And I think that
Um,
I've started scheduling in. I'm not a morning workout person. I tried to be. It doesn't work for me. I can
Yeah,
work
yeah,
in
yeah.
the mornings, like get my admin, but like working out, it just wasn't working in my schedule. So I put it in at 8:30. Once my daughter's asleep, I
Yeah.
like have my 30 minutes. That actually works for me. And it's just like whatever. So it's like figure out what works for you in
Yeah.
order to be successful, because 15 minutes of movement is better than no minutes.
Yeah. Did you read Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
The amount of times I almost cop out of something and then I'll be like 1% better. Like I whisper it to myself sometimes and I'm like 1% better. And I'm like, it's like, and silly things like flossing. Like
Yeah.
I'll see the floss there and then I'll be like 1% better. And then I just do it. And I'm like, as if we could just be reminding ourselves to like those little tiny things, if we just keep doing them, our lives are better.
Yeah. And I think that like for me, that switch flipped in my brain when I became a mom. Like I think about how I used to like act before, and it's like I would be like, okay, you could do that later. Like you can run upstairs and you can grab that thing later. And I'm like, no, I just run upstairs and I grab it now.
Yeah,
like when you
totally.
think about it, do it. Like cross it off the list, and
Yeah.
you become so much more efficient.
Yeah. Look at us.
No, look at us. This has been amazing. Like I have loved this conversation. I feel like
Me
the
too.
audience too will get so much out of it, to just understand how important it is to live a healthy lifestyle, to maintain the balance and the harmony in your life, to not only succeed, but be happy in doing it. Like life, you're supposed to feel joyful in all that you do. And like you drop so many gems on how people can actually do that and how you specifically are doing that. So before we leave, could you let people know where they can find you online?
Yes. Instagram handle. So my business is inspire_design_studio. So Inspire DS Inc. if you find it online. And I'm Paola. So you can find me with my kids, and it's nice, I guess, following me outside the business, because that's where I bring a little bit more into like teaching. Like Cece loves to cook with us now, and we incorporate her into like teaching her how to cook and eating healthy and doing all the things. So a little bit more of my personal life is on there, and it bleeds into the business. It all goes hand in hand. So
I love that. And I love seeing the behind the scenes of like an entrepreneur. Like I feel like that's the most interesting part, in understanding how it all blends and weaves together to build this like beautiful and full life. So thank you so much for spending this time with us, and that is how she does it.
Thanks for having me.